Hello class, my name is Juliana Moreno and from presentation number 4, I've been assigned the book Mr. Popper Penguins by Richard and Florence Atwater and illustrated by Robert Lawson. It's a book that it was written in 1938 and it was written during a time where there was a lot of interest in the polar exploration, which has a very big influence in the setting and in the theme of the story. So I'll proceed to read my excerpt and then we'll discuss a couple details about the book. Mr. Popper put down his book of Antarctic adventures and moved hastily to the radio. What of it? He repeated, pushing the switch. Why, this is the night that Drake Antarctic Expedition is going to start broadcasting. That's nothing, said Mrs. Popper. Just a lot of men at the bottom of the world saying, hello, Mama, hello, Papa. Shh, commanded Mrs. Popper, laying his ear close to the radio. There was a buzz, and then suddenly, from the South Pole, a faint voice floated out into the Popper's living room. This is Admiral Drake speaking. Hello, Mama. Hello, Papa. Hello, Mr. Popper. Gracious goodness, exclaimed Miss Popper. Did he say Papa or Popper? Hello, Mr. Popper, up there in still water. Thanks for your nice letter about the pictures of our last expedition. Watch for an answer, but not by letter, Mr. Popper. Watch for a surprise. Signing off, signing off. You wrote to Admiral Drake? Yes, I did, Mr. Popper admitted. I wrote and told him how funny I thought the penguins were. Well, I never, said Mrs. Popper, very much impressed. Mr. Popper picked up his little globe and found the Antarctic. And to think he spoke to me all the way from there. And he even mentioned my name, Mama. What do you suppose he means by a surprise? I haven't any idea, answered Mrs. Popper. But I'm going to bed. I don't want to be late for the Ladies' Aid and Missionary Society meeting tomorrow. What with the excitement of having a great Admiral Drake speak to him over the radio and his curiosity about the Admiral's message to him. Mr. Popper did not sleep very well that night. He did not see how he could possibly wait to find out what the Admiral meant. When morning came, he was almost sorry that he had nowhere to go, no houses to paint, no rooms to paper. It would have helped to pass the time. Would you like the living room papered over? Asked Miss Popper. I have quite a lot of paper number 88 left from the mayor's house. I would not, said Mrs. Popper firmly. The paper are now plenty good enough, and I'm going to the first meeting of the Ladies' Aid and Missionary Society today, and I don't want any maids around to clean up when I get home. Very well, my love, said Mr. Popper meekly. And he settled down with his pipe, his globe, and his book of Antarctic adventures, but somehow, as he read today, he could not keep his mind from the printed words. His thoughts kept straying away to Admiral Drake. What could he have meant by a surprise for Mr. Popper? Very well. Fortunately, for his peace of mind, he did not have so very long to wait. That afternoon, while Mrs. Popper was still away from the meeting, and Janie and Bill had not yet come from school, there was a loud ring at the front door. I'll suppose just the postman. I won't bother to answer, said to himself. The bell rang again, a little louder this time. Grumbling to himself, Mr. Popper went to the door. It was not the postman who stood there. It was the expressman with the largest box Mr. Popper had ever seen. Party by the name of Popper live here? That's me. Well, here's a package that's come air express all the way from Antarctica. Some journey, I'll say. Mr. Popper signed the receipt and examined the book. The box. It was all covered with markings that would say, unpack at once, and another one said, keep cool. He noticed that the box was punched here and there with air holes. You can imagine that once he had the box inside the house, Mr. Popper had lost no time in getting the screwdriver for this time, of course. He had guessed that it was the surprise from Admiral Drake. He had succeeded in removing the outer board and part of the packaging, which was a layer of dry ice, when, from the depths of the packaging case, he suddenly heard a faint irk. His heart stood still. Surely he had heard that sound before the Drake expedition movies. His hands were trembling so that he could scarcely lift off the last of the wrappings. There was not the slightest doubt about it. It was a penguin. Mr. Popper was speechless with delight. But the penguin was not speechless. Irk, it said again, and this time it held out its flippers and jumped over the packaging debris. It was a stout little fellow about 2.5 feet high, although it was about the size of a little child. It looked much more like a little gentleman, with its smooth white waistcoat in front of its long back tailcoat dragging a little behind. Its eyes were set in two white circles in its back head. It turned its head from one side to another, and at first with one eye and then with the other. It examined Mr. Popper. Mr. Popper had held the penguin extremely curious, and he soon found out that this was true. For stepping out, the visitor began to inspect the house. Down the hall it went and into the bedrooms, with its strange, pompous little strut. When it or he, Mr. Poppet had already begun to think if it's a he or it, go to the bathroom, it looked around with a pleased expression on its face. Richard Atwater started writing the book after being inspired by a documentary about Antarctic explorer Richard E. Byrd. He became sick, and then his wife ended up completing the work and bringing it to publication. I found that the writing of this book was very straightforward, imaginative, and humorous. Um, the part that I personally liked the most was how unpredictable it was, and especially the commentary from his children. I believe that it should be still considered a classic and read by children nowadays, given its ability to inspire creativity and curiosity and the values that it teaches, such as responsibility, adaptation to change,